Καλησπέρα και από μένα. Σας καλωσορίζω και εγώ με τη σειρά μου στην επόμενη μας συζήτηση. Φυσικά θα μιλήσουμε στα αγγλικά στη συνέχεια. Θα ήθελα να συγχαρώ τους διοργανωτές για μια ακόμη για ένα πολύ επιτυχημένο συμπόσιο, κάθε φορά, κάθε χρόνο και πιο πλούσιο σε γνώση. Θα έχω τη χαρά, we will be actually assessing the role of natural gas in the evolving energy landscape. I will have the chance to discuss with Ms. Maria Ritagalli, CEO of DESFA. And of course, we will be analyzing the shifting role of natural gas in Europe's decarbonization strategy. We will be discussing about the geopolitical risks in this process, and of course, low-carbon alternatives such as hydrogen, and you have very interesting projects. So I would like to start by asking more of a comment and your comment on this. As Europe is accelerating its decarbonization targets, how do you see the role of natural gas evolving in order to maintain grid stability, of course, and affordability in an environment that is particularly with high renewable energy variability and, of course, extreme weather conditions? Yes. Mm-hmm. You have to switch on. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this event, and thank you, let's say, for dedicating this time to the role of natural gas in the energy transition. Of course, when I read the title, let's say, bridge fuel or a stubborn relic, well, I felt a little bit myself the stubborn relic since I've been working in natural gas since more than 25 years by now. But let me say, in the natural gas industry, we have always been facing the challenge of being the least polluting fossil fuel, which is, of course, being on the brink between the good and bad, because it's fossil fuel, least polluting, but still polluting. And so, let's say, it's an industry that has always been challenging its role and trying to understand on the long term how, let's say, natural gas would continue to have a role, let's say, in the energy mix. But what is important is to look at the facts. So on one side, it is true that we have seen over the last few years after the gas crisis a significant increase of installed renewable capacity, which has helped to reduce overall in Europe the gas consumption, or let's say in a way save almost 12 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year at European level. But at the same time, we have also to acknowledge that this trend has important limits and is not the same all around Europe. And we have, let's say, very significant differences that we are observing in the European market. First of all, let's consider the case of Germany. Germany has announced that they are going to install 30 gigawatt hour of gas-fired generation by 2030. Why? Because they have been phasing out nuclear, and because they have realized that it's not possible to operate an energy-intense system like the one of Germany without dispatchable energy sources, without gas-fired generation. Another example is Spain. Unfortunately, we are all well aware of what happened a few weeks ago with the blackout. Of course, the assessment of the case is still undergoing, but at the same time, let's look at the fact that after the crisis, after the blackout, the operator of the electricity grid in Spain has significantly increased the percentage of natural gas and nuclear in a daily energy mix, because this is what is necessary to avoid to repeat an event like the one that has been faced in Spain, because what somehow we tend to forget is that every technology has its own characteristic. Here is not just a matter of gas or solar, it's a matter that turbines, like natural gas turbines, nuclear power turbines, have an inertia, a kinetic energy that in case of fluctuation in the frequency of the grid can help gain time until new sources of energy are kicking in.
Could Greece be in danger of such an event? And under what circumstances?
Not yet, and I would say not yet. Because we still have a significant participation of the combined gas-fired generation in the energy mix, helped also by the fact that we have had a growing role of natural gas in the last couple of years for export of electricity. So in this moment, we have a system that is balanced, and we also see let's say, interest in investment being done in Greece by the major power producers for a new combined gas-fired generation. And let me also say that this role of stabilization of the energy grid provided by the gas-fired generation and by the natural gas infrastructures, it's something that is not going to disappear in the short term. We talk about batteries as an alternative in order to ensure system stability. And out of curiosity, I've been looking at what are the achievements of Spain, which certainly is the most advanced of European countries when it comes to renewable energy installation. And in Spain, they had a target by 2025, this year, of 500 megawatt of installed batteries, and they have installed 25 megawatt, 5% of the target, not 15%, not 20%, 5% of the target. And last but not least, we always have to consider in the overall, let's say, impact in terms of emission, the emission of the entire value chain of a source of energy versus another. When we consider, let's say, the various building blocks of the energy system. It's a fact that gas-fired generation emits more than solar and wind, that are essentially emission-free when they are in operating mode, but they are not emission-free because they need to be built, to be installed. Let's say for the average emission for every megawatt hour produced by solar panels is approximately 40 to 41 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour, not megawatt hour. And you need to add another 60 for the batteries. And then you need to have many more kilometers of power networks that brings additional emission. And the industry of lithium mining alone, every year, emits 100 million tons of CO2. So, let's say, we need to look at the energy systems as with a very comprehensive approach, which, don't misunderstand me, I'm fully convinced that we will see a constant and significant growth in the role of sun and wind in the energy mix. But at the same time, let's say the facts are somehow confirming that natural gas is a very important component of a reliable energy system, because as of today, it's still the least polluting fossil fuel and the only one who stable. Can really stabilize the grids.
Of course, storage is a huge discussion, a huge matter, and obviously technologies need to evolve. But let's bring in the discussion the factor Donald Trump in this introductory statements. So how is the industry responding to Donald Trump's embrace of the fossil fuels and his limited appetite, of course, for clean energy? And how are Trump's policies affecting the role of Europe in the energy market, actually?
Of course, it's quite evident that, let's say, in a world of drill, baby, drill, there is a slowdown of the effort toward the targets of energy transition. But at the same time, the industry, let's say, knows what is the path. And this path will be there 4 years down the road. Already during the first Trump administration, US has invested a lot in renewables, in many Republican states, by the way. So, and the major oil and gas companies will probably slow down, but will not abandon the efforts toward decarbonization, because they are well aware that, let's say, if they do that, down the road, they will have to face many more difficulties to recover the period which is lost. So is a correction, a correction that, of course, is heavy and affecting, let's say, the overall targets of decarbonization. But I think that business is always rational in this respect. And I'm quite optimistic that, yes, we will see a slowdown, but we will continue to go in the direction of decarbonization. How this is impacting Europe? Well, let's say the main point with respect to Europe is how much more US LNG are we going to import. Let's say there is a need of additional LNG import for replacing what remains of Russian gas. Doesn't necessarily mean to be US LNG, there is also Qatar, there are other sources of LNG, and we hopefully will see a competition among different LNG sources, and this should help stabilize, let's say in the next few years, the prices and bring them to a normal physiological level.
And we saw record numbers of LNG flows from the European terminals to the EU gas transportation systems, which is something very positive, I suppose.
Yeah, of course, we also saw a growth utilization rate of our terminals, of Revitusa terminal. In the first part of 2024, we had many cargo cancellations because we had a lot of pipe gas, but starting from the summer last year, we saw an increase of LNG cargos coming to Greece for domestic production and for export, but more in the form of electricity, produced in Greece and exported, produced with the LNG and exported in other countries.
So natural gas is shifting from a base load fuel to a more of flexibility instrument. So how does DESFA see this transition playing out in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Well, for sure, we see a very significant trend toward increased volatility. Increased volatility in the utilization of all the infrastructures. The infrastructure always needed to be sized on the basis of the peak of the demand. So we are not sizing a pipe or a terminal based on the average demand, because what counts is that we need to serve when the peak demand is coming. But of course, we have a system that is utilized in a very shifting mode. And this, I believe, is a trend that is going to remain. On the other side, and we still have to understand how the big data center will impact the energy system, because they are very much base load consumption. And so there will trigger probably a bit more of base load production in the future. Either nuclear, gas, and of course in combination with renewables. So this may be something that eventually can stabilize a bit the pattern on utilization of the grids. These very volatile patterns, in my opinion, will require more shorter term storage solution also for gas, which luckily are quite easy to be implemented. These LNG storages, tanks, because they have a rapid response and they can, let's say, react to the needs in a more flexible way than underground storages that requires, let's say, for which there is a seasonal injection and seasonal withdrawal phase. So we need to think about how to create more flexibility in the system.
Do you feel that this is a great momentum for liquefied natural gas systems?
Well, in general, let's say after the Russian gas crisis, but now since many decades, the LNG industry has been growing steadily. It's an industry that, in comparison to the traditional pipeline, long distance transportation, has the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are, of course, that you are not reliant only on few sources of supply, because you can decide to buy from many different countries. The disadvantages is that when you buy a ship from the United States, it takes 30 days to arrive. When you have gas in the pipeline, you can adjust the nomination on an hourly basis, and so it's much more reactive and flexible. And generally, LNG is more expensive because you have to liquefy the LNG, which is a energy-intensive activity. But on the balance, this creates a much more liquid market, like the one of oil, of crude, and the trend worldwide will continue to see a growth of the LNG industry.
Before we go, we discuss more about specific projects of DESFA, because they're very interesting and we have discussed a lot about it. Just a comment, we just learned that the US Secretary of Energy approved a final authorization of for liquefied natural gas exports to non-free trade agreement countries, which is something I suppose very important.
Yeah, indeed. Let's say it was expected, and this means that there will be more, let's say, terminals that potentially will be installed in the United States to, let's say, exploit their capacity of export.
So, with ongoing geopolitical tensions and, of course, the EU's push to exit Russian energy by 2027, as you already mentioned as well, please let us know what specific steps is DESFA taking to ensure long-term supply security and system resilience in Southeast Europe in general.
Well, with respect to steps, in our case, these steps are investments, so capital investment in pieces of our network or part of our infrastructures, in particular out of our 1.4 billion investment plan. We have ongoing and will be completed this year 2 big new compressor stations that will increase the ability of the grid to send gas in multiple directions and therefore potentially to export more LNG arriving in Greece toward the neighboring countries, and this goes hand in hand also with the new connection with North Macedonia. And in general, all the investment that we are doing in northern Greece, which is an area where both in terms of interconnection with neighboring countries as well as with the demand of the new CCGTs of Komotini, of Alexandroupolis, and in the future Ptolemaida and Agios Dimitrios, we see a bigger demand of strengthening the grid. On another perspective, for us, it's very important to invest in coordinating with our partners, the other TSOs, and promote in market solutions to facilitate export of natural gas. This we are doing with our TSO partner in the context of the Vertical Corridor Project initiative, and we have recently introduced a product very, very recently, so the market now needs to assess it and familiarize with it, that essentially will help all the market players to book one single contract, one single application through a system, to book a capacity from Greece to Ukraine. And this is a very important element that allows the certainty that the gas, which will be transported, is a non-Russian gas, because this is needed to be coupled with entry points that are Revitus, Alexandroupolis, Niamey-Simvria, entry points where gases of other sources only can arrive. And we do expect that after 27, of course, if there will be an actual achievement of this European target, the utilization of the Greek infrastructures for export toward the neighboring country will be even more significant.
We have 2 minutes left, and I would like to focus on 2 specific projects. So DESFA is taking a strong lead, both in hydrogen and CCS technology, carbon capture and storage systems. So I would like to focus on Idria, H2 DRIA,
yep,
and Apollo CO2, 2 very emblematic projects. Please let us know about these.
Well, thank you. Maybe today, since I was a bit touched by this stubborn relic, I only spoke about natural gas, but indeed we are doing a lot about, let's say, how green gases or gas technologies in general will contribute to the energy transition. Let's say the project which is closer in time, we hope, is the Apollo CO2 project, which is a project that entails the construction of a dedicated CO2 grid and a liquefaction terminal in the Revitussa terminal, which will use the heat exchange with the cold power of LNG to liquefy the CO2 and therefore save the energy in the liquefaction process, and will combine with, let's say, of course, the Prinos underground storage, and potentially in the future Ravenna or even Egypt, when a new reservoir will be developed. And let's say the effort that we are posing with respect to the development in the long term of a hydrogen grid in Greece, both for domestic but significantly more for export potential, has led to the design of a backbone pipeline that has been included in the PCI list, like Apollo itself, the IDRIA project, for which the Connecting Euro facility has approved grant financing that will allow us to finance these studies, the engineering studies, which is the first step to, let's say, mature the project. So, of course, and all our new pipelines that we're building for the gas grid are built and designed with the specification of pure hydrogen project. So, let's say, we believe in moleculars. Now, we think gas will remain for longer than initially planned, but at the end, what counts is molecular will remain in the energy mix.
I think this is a new chapter opening, and DESFE is playing a crucial role in this. I think we've taken advantage in a perfect manner of our time. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Ο χρόνος μας τελείωσε. Thank you very much for this discussion. Παραδίδω τη σκητάλη στον κύριο Πεφάνη.